Another super quick intro this week because I have to go help decorate our Christmas tree. So, my guest this week is Damien Doepping. He has a great podcast that he does called Spooked, where they tell scary stories, and it's a whole bunch of improv, and it's a whole lot of fun. So, the link to it's going to be in the description, so check it out. And we have a great time getting to know each other, and we talk about a show that I was on and I got voted out of. A little bitter about it, but whatever. Enjoy the conversation. Thanks so much. Episode 14 of Outside the Pottery stuff. Okay. All right. Well, so thank you for coming. I appreciate it. It's exciting to have a different type of comedian on. Like I had Chris on, I guess a couple episodes ago now, and he was really fun to talk to because he's like an actor more so than I guess anything else, and you're an improviser of sorts. I guess is your main.
Like podcasting, improvising right now. That's kind of the.
That's
thing,
cool.
So.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, it's nice. That's why I've really enjoyed the show we've been doing together, which is the Comedy Survivor parody. Outwit,
Outplay, Outlaugh.
Thank you. Yeah, I always get the last two.
I do too.
Yeah.
I know Outlaugh's the last one.
That's yes. And so it's really fun because like when I do mostly stand up, so like I mostly just hang out with stand up comedians. Yeah. Who are mostly narcissists, selfish, and like mostly focus on themselves, right? Well, just by nature of it, like you can't really hang out with anyone else. Like you can't like rely on any other one person too much, because then you just become more like them, right? Like if you hang out with one guy too much, like your styles sort of start to morph together, right? And then the name of the game is being able to be your own thing, right? Yeah. And so that's the rough part. So like even if you have friends, like the ones I get to hang out with the most are our voices are completely different. Yeah. Right. Like I'm a little bit more like talkative, a little bit more loud, a little bit more silly. Whereas like the guys that I hang out with, like one of them, like he starts every set by saying, "I'm tired." Like that's the first thing he says, right? And so it's nice that we get to hang out and talk like writing wise, but like our performances are completely different. So it's nice to be able to like merge that way. But all this to say, I really like to getting to hang out with all different types of comedians because you get to find the joy in other types of performing.
Oh, exactly. That's kind of what's nice about the podcast I do, Spooked. We have a different actor and comedian on every week, so we get like a little taste of that. But doing this Outlaugh show, you actually get to work with people a little more than just like an hour. Once it's a lot more involved as far as that goes, which has been really nice.
I mean, like if you're gonna do the challenges properly, which I've been trying to do, like putting the necessary time in, like you have to spend like a few hours a week, like with the people you're working with, in order to like make sure that you follow through on what you're promising, right?
Well, you got to keep checking in, and you're like, is this what we want to do? How's this gonna go?
Kudos to you guys last week because you murdered that talk show idea. Because that was a premise that didn't even enter our heads. Like that was such a different take, and it was so fun and so silly.
It was actually Chili's idea, so I want to give that to him. It was a great idea. It was one of our like very first ideas, and I personally was a little hesitant at first just because we found it and we were jumping on it, and just like we got to make sure that we've kind of looked at what else we could do. But
well, the idea of it is really funny, right?
Yeah.
But like that's good. But you also want to make sure there's jokes and other stuff in there that help support it, right? Like you're not just getting the shock laugh right off the top.
It's also a risk too.
Yes.
It was a big risk.
Yeah, well, if they don't bite on the premise, then you're sunk, right?
Yeah. And I knew that we were going to be able to do it. I was just I was hesitant at first. It took
just some background is that we for the challenge we had to do last week for the show that we were doing. There's 3 tribes. Each one of each tribe of 4 people had to put on their own late night talk show. So my group, we did like a traditional talk show where like it was like we had setups, but there was like little funny banter throughout it, right? I played the band leader. I was playing the trumpet. Yeah. I did great. I was pretty happy with it. Another tribe did like a traditional talk show ish, but they broke the fourth wall that there was like commercial breaks you saw behind the camera and stuff. Alt. Yeah, a little bit more alty. You guys did a completely different thing than the both of us. Your late night talk show was two kids, like the characters the two of your members were playing. Two kids doing their talk show from their basement. Yeah,
and I gotta say, I love going into something and not being sure if it's gonna work, and then having it work so well that there's nothing else you can really say about it.
Yeah, I mean the goal of I guess a lot of comedy is to surprise the audience, right? Like you want to take a turn that they're not expecting, and then that makes the laugh even that much bigger.
Oh yeah.
But it's another layer of like you don't even expect what's gonna happen, right? Like you know what you're gonna say and stuff, but like you don't.
This whole show has been that for me. I've been so uncertain about every week and about everything, how things are going to play. So
every week before, like on the Monday, like thinking about the show coming up, I'm like I don't really I'm trying to convince myself that I don't care that much. Mm-hmm. And then 20 minutes before the show starts, my pulse is racing.
Oh, man.
And I'm like I need to go pace and take a walk. Like I'm going to go pee 18 times for some reason. Like,
well, I think the big reason the first week was probably one of the worst, just because you didn't know what anyone was going to do. You didn't know what anything was.
I was terrified going in.
I had no idea.
Because out of everyone, mm-hmm. I have the least experience and the least amount of credit. It's like everyone else has done stuff. like everyone else on the line. Like, because you know when they post the bios, mine was just like, I just stand up.
I know, seeing those, that worried me too.
Yeah.
But like the last week with the talk show too, I was so worried. Just for our group, it was. We needed the win. So.
Well, I mean, a little bit more background. Like there was originally like the red tribe and the blue tribe, and then we weeded it down. Like and then like you guys, the blue tribe ended up losing. The second or third week you lost like a couple of members, and we made it through unscathed.
It ended up being down to 4 original blue and 8 original red.
Yeah, but before that, like we swapped. Like some people went up from red, went to like blue, and it flopped around,
and then back to 3 tribes. But I think the thing was too, especially in this kind of competition, you're always thinking about how those tribe lines are going to play.
Yeah,
and just from the standpoint of like, if people are thinking like, oh, we have to keep our original tribe strong, we would have been totally boned if we'd have lost something.
Yeah.
So I think this way it keeps us in the game still.
Well, the hard part is like, in terms of Survivor and stuff, like we don't have that time back at camp.
Oh yeah,
where we can interact with the other tribe, right? Like, so even if you have time to get together with people, you're going to get together with your tribe because you need to rehearse or etc. And like, there's not a lot of chance to unless you really put the time in, like we are now, just trying to get to know each other a little bit more outside of the 5 minutes before the show.
This show's been consuming my life for the last few weeks. So.
But it's so much fun. Like I'm so happy that I get to do it because like it's so different than the usual performing I'm doing, right? And like being able to perform with so many other talented people, like it raises everyone's talent level because like. You know, like the pressure's on, perform, right? And I've only bombed once on this show so far, so and it wasn't even just one of my jokes bombed really hard.
That's gonna happen. I feel my first week was kind of like that, so I get it.
Well, I think the first couple weeks, like me and you, kind of to get like both of us had the similar thing that we were kind of flying under the radar. A little bit. Like, I don't think a lot of people knew my name.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people knew who I was either. From, like, the audience-wise.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing about doing an online thing, is that your Toronto base isn't exactly your main base.
No. Yeah.
It makes it difficult, but...
Oh, yeah. So, plug your podcast as well.
Like, so I do an improvised scary story podcast called Spooked. I do it with my co-host, Cody Crane. We've been doing it for about 4.5 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I'm a baby. This is like 3 months in for me, or 4 months. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing that one for a while now. It's been good. Building up as we can, meeting all kinds of people.
Well, it's fun because you I guess you have you're in the type of environment now where like you have listeners and like you can have interactions with them and stuff like that, right?
We've had a couple, not a lot.
Well, I mean, like, you know, if you I guess if you put out a call to action, someone will respond or something.
We've gotten a few things,
right? Well, like whereas with my I guess art, like I'm doing this right now just for the love of the game, you know, like you know, I hope at some point it'll start resonating and people will be like, I'll have regular listeners. All right, at this point I have like 5 regular listeners and I know them by name,
but that's like what happened
but then like, you know, you're building the back catalog, so like when people find it and like fall in love with it, like when I find a podcast that I love, like I'll go back and listen to like 20 episodes in a row, right? Like, and so I'm just trying to like focus on like getting better at just doing this, right?
Oh yeah, well that's basically what we did. We started out because we wanted to do it and see how it would go, and then it ended up being like, oh, we just get to hang out and do improv and meet a different person every week, and like, we had the same setup where we were just like using the Yeti mic and everything too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Yeti mic.
No,
it's great.
It's great. Yeah. I mean, we used it for a long time, so you know, it's not a bad way to go about it, especially for a one-on-one. But we had like, you know, when you have like 5 or 6 people,
it starts to drown each other out. Yeah.
So eventually, you know, you start investing a little bit more into it, and you start trying to put a little bit more into it as well, and it's been fun. I mean, and then the interaction thing. Sometimes it's totally dependent on what you're doing. Like, I do another podcast called Believe It or Not, where we talk about different. Like religious groups, mostly like fringe and like cults and things like that as well.
Yeah, the spaghetti ones.
We get a lot more
Pastafarians. Right?
We haven't talked about that yet, but we probably should.
Yeah.
We get a lot more interaction with that just based on the subject matter.
Right.
And I know Cody, he does a Survivor podcast, and they get a lot of interaction for that. So it really just it depends. I find like comedy podcasts, unless you're like a huge name, people aren't like. They'll listen, but they don't really care enough to engage. Yeah.
Well, this one's it's a comedy podcast by nature of like I'm really like most of the people I know that want to do this are comedians. But like let's get into the topic of what the show is about. It's called Outside the Party because tracking back in my life, like the things that really made me the person I am today are a function of all the parties I never got invited to, right? Because like the bullying, whatever, all the social things I went through, it's what gave me my sense of humor, what made me the type of person I am. Yeah. And like now I'm in the part of my life where I'm thankful for all of the, you know, quote unquote suffering I went through, right? Yeah. So like I like to talk to interesting people about the rough things they went through and try and like, you know, pull out the silver linings and stuff. So the hope is that when people listen to this, if they're going through a rough time, they can find something that they can relate to that resonates with them. Yeah. At the same time, I talk to comedians, so there's laughs throughout, right? Because it's, you know,
not today.
Always got to cut the today. No laughs. No laughs.
No, we're keeping it real. We're not. Gosh. No jokes.
Oh, that would be a challenge. Would you make jokes, but no, at no point are you allowed to laugh. Like you're just like, and then I left. Anyways, just moving on like that. So the first question I like to go through, starting it off light and breezy, is I just want you to tell me about the worst day of your life.
The worst day of my life?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Whatever jumps first to your head. It doesn't have to be a good answer. It just has to be the first one.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Oh, pretty bad one was when my grandfather died. That was a pretty rough day for me. I was at Humber at the time. Right. And he'd been on and off sick for a while. Like, he'd had cancer several times. Yeah. And he had just gone into the hospital for... he just had like a cold. It was around Thanksgiving or something like that. And I went and visited him, I think around that time, and he was doing fine. And I guess what had happened was one of the days a nurse came in and they gave him the wrong medication. Oh. And it basically made him like a vegetable. So he basically like shut down, just kind of became incoherent. Yeah. So they ended up getting a hospital bed and bringing him home, and I came down to visit, and I remember that night because I was doing a project for stand-up class, so I'm like trying to write a stand-up set while my grandfather's like downstairs there, and it's kind of like we don't know how long he's gonna be here, so they're just like I was getting the train back to Toronto to go back to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember coming down that morning, and my mom and my grandmother and my sister were there, and they were playing music for some reason. I think it was like Vince Gill or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember that scene like very, very vividly, and just that feeling of hopelessness, right?
Right.
Like there's nothing you really can do, and you just kind of have to move on and just like keep doing your thing.
Unfortunately, I know the feeling well.
Just
by nature of like the age cohorts in my family, like when I was like 6 or so, like everyone in my grandparents, like on my Italian side, on their generation level, like basically started dropping like flies.
Yeah.
So like I was going to 2-3 funerals a year, right? Yeah. And so it gets to a certain point that like you're just so used to that experience that you kind of become a little bit numb to it.
No.
But then like one comes in that really hits you hard. Like it was one of my great uncles. When my mom was born, this great uncle and his wife, they couldn't have kids, right? And they didn't want to adopt. So like right after they got married, my mom was born. So then she became like their proxy daughter a little bit. Like so like they got to they would always babysit and go out of their way and really spoiled her. So like they were really close to our family, right? Yeah. And so when he started to pass, he got sick for a long time. He had cancer for years, right? And he was getting worse and worse. And then miracle happened. He went into remission, right? And then everything was good. Fast forward about a year and a half. He goes to the doctor one day with a sore arm or something like that. Find out it came back with a vengeance, and he has like weeks left, right? So towards the end, like you said, they brought him home. They had him in his room, and we went over there. We went to visit him, and then they were like, he doesn't have long. It's gonna be within the week. Yeah. And we were sitting downstairs. We were having coffee, and one of their relatives left. Like got in the car. We were saying bye to them. And then we come back in, and you just hear screaming from upstairs because my aunt had gone upstairs, and in the 2 minutes that he was left alone, he had passed away, right? And then it was crazy because like you can't do anything, but there's all this emotion you feel like you want to do something, right? You feel like you want that sense of hopelessness, like and like I have a sense of humor. I'm a witty guy, but like. This is the one moment in my life where I'm like, I can't make any jokes to make this better. Like nothing I say, like no matter what, there's nothing to go off of. It's that weightlessness feeling, right? And so all that to say, I can empathize with what you're feeling, right?
Of course. And like I didn't, like so I'd gone home and I got the call when I was on the GO train that he had passed away too. So I wasn't. Wow. I was there. I wasn't there anymore. I was by myself in a very public place too when I found out. So
yeah, you just hug the window, right? Hug the window
a little bit, yeah. But I mean, that's what happens, right? And you don't always have to joke about things either.
No, it's just if that's like I guess a lot of us develop that as a coping mechanism, and if like that's your I guess that's your snap thing to go to, and when that's no longer an option, it's like. A lot of the times I'll use humor as a way to distance myself from what's happening, right? Like when I feel awkward, when I feel like out of place, that's when you make the joke because like you're getting the attention on you, but you're manipulating it in the way that you want it on you.
And it's also not necessarily on you; it's on the joke.
It's on the idea.
It's a mask.
Yes. Yes, something you can put in front of yourself, but that's. But it's interesting when you come into these situations where you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And I guess you learn something about yourself because a lot of the times what we're doing is we're running away from the feelings we're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
And when they catch up to you, you always learn something about yourself because that's when you're really tested. And it's trying to find the silver lining in that is difficult because, but the silver lining I found when my great uncle passed away is that we were devastated for a couple hours, but then we got the funeral home to come. They took him away, and then we were left sitting there, and we were Italian, so we had some pastries and we made some coffee, and then we got to just sit around and tell some stories.
Yeah.
Right. You got to everyone. There's tears in your eyes, but then the laughs do get to start because then you can be like, you remember when Uncle Fonzie did this, right? And then you get to like. You're missing him, but you also get a chance to celebrate him.
You're starting the mourning process.
Yes. And that's a great thing to be able to experience because you only hope that when you pass away, people get to are talking about you in that way, where like that you leave behind a legacy that is celebrated. That's people truly miss you.
Some sort of impact on people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we can hope for. And to take a hard left from that,
sure.
How did you start performing?
Oh, how did I start?
I usually ask why did you start stand up, but for you, what got you in on stage?
What did get me on stage? I mean, the thing that really kind of, I think, solidified me into it was more in high school. When I was in like 6th grade, I was in a class and we did a bunch of plays and stuff like that too. Right. I think that really kind of started myself and a few friends of mine into it, but it wasn't until high school that we really started to love it.
Right.
And it was all down to the teacher we had too. He was a younger teacher, but he was like a really cool guy, and like he knew. I mean, like in a good way, not like oh yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
But like
you used to smoke pot with us outside of the school after school.
Not like a creep, but the type of theater and like how he wanted us to like go about it, and it was always very collaborative. And,
right.
You know, he treated you like an individual and not like an idiot. You know, which you sometimes will get in that kind of situation.
Yeah. You have those teachers that leave a mark.
Yeah, and he exposed
for me it was music. For you, it was drama.
Like he exposed us to some really like fun stuff, and you know that's where I learned a lot about like absurdist theater and like you know Beckett and Ionesco and Pinter and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'd say that's probably what really solidified me into that side of it, and then I went to Queens for drama and did it there, and I'd always been doing like sketch kind of improv stuff all through high school, and then at Queens I did a bit as well.
Do you have like a group of friends that you did it all with through high school?
We did, yeah. In high school we did a bunch of things, and then in university it was a little less because I was working more on like theater stuff, and then towards the end I was getting back a little more into sketch. And after Queens I took a year off, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next, and I was looking at a few like theater schools and stuff, thinking about going to that, but the more I thought about it, the less it appealed to me. And my friend Chelsea, who I went to Queens with, she told me about the Humber program, and it's like, okay, well, let's see what the fuck happens with this.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where I guess brought me to where I am now.
What I know at Humber, like you get to touch on a lot of different types of comedy. Yeah. Which one really popped for you in that experience? Because I know they do stand up. I know they do sketch writing. I know they do improv, and then like script writing as well, right?
Yeah. You do like touch on a lot of different subjects, which is nice. For me, the big thing is really having deadlines. I can be very bad for creating my own deadlines. So if I have something to work towards, I will work towards it. That's why the Survivor show has been so good. It gives me something to.
It's a framework, right?
It gives me something to work off of.
Yeah.
And like once I have that, I can do it. Otherwise, you know, sometimes you're just like, I'll do it later. And it's like, I got all month. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So Humber was really great for that. I love the sketch classes. I've always been like a big sketch fan. I mean, now I mostly do improv, but that's just kind of how things turned out. I don't know if that's because it's my first love or anything like that.
It's not planned. It's just the way things shook out. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I watched a lot of stand up. I was always a big stand up And I really like doing stand-up at Humber, but I was having a hard time finding what my stand-up voice was, and I think because I was too aware that I didn't know it yet, that it was hard for me to keep doing it.
Yeah. It requires a level of delusion that is I don't think is present in sketch or improv. Improv, you have to delude yourself that it'll go well. Like you have to release yourself from the idea that it has to go a certain way. So you have to trust the people you're with and sort of remove yourself from the planning of it, right? You just have to let what happens.
Yeah.
In sketch, it's kind of similar. You have to be able to collaborate with the other people you're working with a lot of the times. Whereas with stand-up, you have to delude yourself that you are great at it, right? Because you have to believe that you're good at it in order to do it. Because if you believe, like, you'll go through periods where you think you suck, but you always have to come back to, like, I think I'm actually good at this.
Yeah.
Just in order to keep yourself going. Because it's an individual pursuit. That, like you said, there's no deadlines. There's no real curriculum to go through. You could take classes. You'll get a couple of things out of it. But at the end of the day, even if they teach you joke structure and things like that, like you said, you need to find your own funny and figure out how to deliver.
You know your voice. You know what you want to say. And I think I have a bit more of that now. I'm more comfortable with what I am comedically as far as that goes, and I think improv is good in that way, is that it helps you to kind of put stuff out there and just like let it be. It's like it's out there, it's done.
You don't have to stand by it.
No, and you
have to stand by it the night of. Yeah. But like it's not like you do like an improv scene and then it's like, okay, we're gonna do that exact same thing tomorrow at a different place, right?
I think more. I don't know if I want to say you don't have to stand by it. I mean, you stand by it, but you're also accepting that it is impermanent and it's okay if it doesn't go well. So improv can be really good for helping you deal with that failure and that things like it was in the moment and that moment doesn't affect the next moment really.
Right.
And you're able to move on.
The thing I love about improv is the audience that you get to perform for a lot of the times, because the improv audience. Is that me? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh. No, that's not that one. Is it this one? It's that one. Questionable. But the thing I love about improv is the audience, because they, when it's a good audience, I've done it with bad audiences, but they sign up for what's happening.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you go to an improv show, like a lot of the times the audience is like, we understand that none of this is planned. So I feel like their threshold for what they consider incredible is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
At the same time, their threshold for what they consider bad is a little bit is a little bit more lenient. Like they if a scene doesn't go, they'll still give you some sort of response or laugh, and they're conciliatory a little bit, right? And that's nice because you can kind of have that safety net, and you know that even if it goes bad, it's not going to go horrible.
I think with improv too, part of the fun and part of what people like about it is not knowing what's going to happen and knowing that it could go wrong.
Yeah.
So there's an enjoyment in the game of what improv is that you don't really get with something like stand-up, where if you don't do well and they don't like you,
they'll boo you off the stage.
They don't like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a very forgiving audience, stand-up audience.
No. I mean, but the good thing is about that is you it's really baptism by fire. A lot of the shows you do.
Yep.
I mean, you go do a shitty bar show out in Ajax or Oshawa, where I've had a lot of good sets, because you need to learn how to get them on your side, because you have about 15 seconds to convince them that you're worth listening to, right? And you need to get them really quickly. And like when you have a drunk, middle-aged white audience, like they're like, okay, make me laugh, and if you don't get them early, like you won't get them back.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really like it's like fighting with your back up against a wall. It's like, okay, prove yourself right now.
Yeah.
And then when you go into good shows, you have all of that seasoning that you've went through that allows you to like no matter what really happens, like you know that you can get yourself out of it, right? Which is fun, but it's also like if you don't really love it, like you shouldn't be doing it because it's soul crushing, which is fun. Yeah, it's fun. Speaking of soul crushing, what's the worst show you've ever done? What's the worst time you've had on stage?
There's been a couple. One really bad one was actually a stand-up night. I don't know if it was the worst, but it was definitely one of the weirder nights. So this was back in first year at Humber, and I'd maybe done like 3 sets at that point, maybe. And like short, like 1-2 minute sets, so nothing.
Really?
Oh man, like
did they do it that short? Like,
well, at first, like this is like in the first like 2-3 months being there, so we've maybe had.
So what's the first set that they facilitate for you stand up wise? Because I haven't talked to anyone about this, so they're just like so you go into like I guess stand up 101, whatever they're calling the class, right? They I guess they tell you about like what stand up is, etc. And then they say like, okay, this Friday will be your first time on stage. Set the scene? What type of show do they do?
Well, there's a few like because we do them in class, so you prepare different things, and sometimes they'll give you like specific assignments as well. Early on, I think it was a little more about learning the structure, learning how to like time out a set. So it's like you have 2 minutes to do this, so you need to make sure you have enough material for that, but you also have to know. Like when you get the light, you have to be able to wrap it up and everything. So it was more about getting the framework and things like that. And then it'd be like, all right, for next week, write a 2-minute set on one-liners. Or this week we're doing, you got booked to do like a bachelor party, so you need to write like 5 minutes for that. So it was like different assignments that would kind of like give you like a framework, things to write a set around. But early on it was more just like write like what you know, what your voice is based around that framework. So we were doing that, and a friend of mine, he's just like, "Hey, do you want to do this show? It's in a weed room," and I'd never been in a weed room before, stand up or otherwise. Yeah. So this was like a first experience.
I know where this is going. Look at the smile.
Oh my god, it was very weird. So this one's not there anymore. It was I think it's on like Wellesley or something like that. It was like the second or third floor, so there's like this doorway in the back, and you go up like 3 flights of like graffitied stairs, kind of smell like pee, and then you're in this like dark like neon,
a speakeasy,
kind of, and in like this dark neon lit room. The host, he was a super nice guy, like he was like I can't remember who it was. This was like 5 years ago. But we both get there, and he's just like, oh yeah, great, okay, you guys are great, and the first thing he says is like, all right, you're going first tonight, like to me, and I'm like, okay, I've never been in a weed room before. I've never really done stand-up before. So I'm going first, and then he says my friend is going at the end. So we're there the whole show. So he does this like little intro. It goes all right. The crowd's hard to read. And I go up and I do my terrible, terrible material. And there's one guy in the room who... I actually read an article about this guy much later. I can't remember what his name is, but he's just this loud heckler. And any joke you would make, he would say something like, you'd say like, Rufus. Oh, talking about something like that. It's like, oh, my girlfriend. He's like, yeah, you don't have a girlfriend. And he would just start laughing. And everyone in the audience knows him, and they're on his side, and they're with him.
Someone was telling me about this guy. I think it might be the same show. I think his name's Rufus.
I think it is. Yeah, and so that that just takes the wind out of your sails the whole set, and the rest of the crowd is just so quiet because they're all stoned, and of course, like I didn't really know that. Like you can't really read an audience. Yeah. And then the night just got weirder. Like so, I finished and I got off the stage and I'm like, oh fuck, that was a lot, and I'm not gonna leave because my friend's still on there, and then they all get high, and my friend's like, I shouldn't have smoked. I don't know why I did. And this guy's heckling the whole night, and then this woman goes up and she does her set, and it's a good set, but then he starts heckling her, and then this other guy starts coming up, and he's just like, can I say something? She's like, no, I'm doing my set. He's like, yeah, but I just want to say something. Can I have the mic? And she's like, no. And this turns into like this like 10-minute long odyssey between her and this really stoned guy. and it's really weird.
Yeah.
And everyone
I almost had to have a fist fight with a guy trying to do that.
That almost happened, and then so that happens. And
the good thing in that situation is she's a woman, so it's like if it ever came to physicality, immediately everyone's on her side, right?
He was not physical in any way. He was just stoned and wanted to say something, and the host was right there, so there was no threat in that way. It was just a really weird situation. So then she got off, and then my friend had to go and do his like shitty 2 minutes of whatever he had.
Yeah.
And then we both totally bombed, and it was a weird, awful night. Yeah. Not like the worst. I mean.
It sticks in your mind, right? It sticks in your mind. Like a lot of the times, like I've done shows where I've eaten like absolute like dog shit, right? Like where like it crushes your soul, but. Funny enough, like when that happened, it didn't really bother me because like it was a shitty show. I went in and like everyone else was eating shit, but I went up and ate shit. But like I enjoyed it. Like as it was happening, I was like, "Oh, this is shit," but like I'm gonna learn something from this. And then sort of like even if you listen to like the recording, I think I like voice record. It's like I'm smiling through it. Like you can hear me like in my voice that I'm happy about it for some reason, right? But like the ones that really stick in my mind is like when it was a good show, I went up and I just ate a dick. Even though it didn't go like terribly, like I still got laughs, but like compared to the rest of the night and where I thought it should be, like that's where like it really
I gotta say I was thinking about that too. Those are probably the worst nights is when doing like improv with people who are really good at improv, and then you just bite it so hard. And you just look like an idiot in front of these people that you respect.
So you're an experienced improviser. What do you consider I'll just say that for you. You don't have to accept it, but what do you consider like biting it in improv? Like what do you consider you like bombing? Or, I guess I don't know what language is associated with improv.
Same
but like,
way.
I guess.
Same things apply.
What do you consider that? Because improv is so ethereal and like it's always changing.
I think it's something you know in the moment.
Right.
You know when the audience isn't reacting.
It's like porn, you know when you see it.
Yeah. You know when something's not going over. You know when your scene partners don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
You know when you put out an offer and you're like, that was a terrible offer. That didn't do anything. That just stonewalled everyone and I look like a moron. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's such an interesting thing because. I guess with stand up like because like that joke, like how that joke normally performs, and then you see it happening here. It's like okay, that was it me? Was it material? Was it them? Like it's this weird like because performance. I can't remember who said this, but I'm quoting someone. It's like, but performance in any sense is alchemy. Like you're creating gold out of nothingness. You hope. Right, but like there's so many different ingredients. It's you, it's the person you're performing with. In stand-up, it might be the host, it might be the person that went before you. In improv, it might be the suggestion you get. It's and then it's the audience response. Like, how much are they signed up for this? Right, like, and it's all these things. Like, it's interesting when you think about like the show, your best show ever. It's like, it wasn't just you. Like, 18 things had to come together perfectly to have that situation. Yeah. And like leading off of that, like what do you think your best show was? Like, what sticks in your mind that way?
That's hard to say. I mean, honestly, one of the best ones in recent memory was last Monday. That talk show at Outlaugh. I mean, everything.
You played 2 characters in that, right?
Sort of.
Yeah.
One and a half. One was like an offstage voice.
Yeah.
But I think that everything came together and just worked. And it had been a while since I'd been in a show where everything worked.
Yeah.
Which was weird.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
The week before, when we were doing improv, the improvised movie scenes.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the best performances I've done in a while.
That was a really good one too.
That was a really fun one. It was like our whole thing was like it just all the way through, and then it made it even sweeter, the drama at the end, whether or not it was valid. And we were all just standing up there looking at each other like. I don't. We thought it was good.
People love the controversy, though.
I know.
That's the show.
I know. That was only my 3rd time kissing a man.
There you go.
Yeah. First one was my dad. Second one was my best friend, and that was like for irony. Like it was a funny story. He was sitting like on a patio downtown, like talking to people, having drinks, and like I was meeting him, like, and he didn't know, like, I didn't text him to say I'm arriving, so I just walked up to him and just grabbed his face. Like people I didn't know, like 10 people like at this table, and they were just like, what the hell is happening? And it got a great laugh. It was really fun.
Oh, that's
but
good.
Yeah,
good you didn't get like punched or something just for a
no,
stranger kissing you.
yeah. Luckily, it was him.
Yeah,
like, imagine you see someone from the back of their head. It's like, oh, that's him.
I'm saying if a stranger kissed me, I'd probably hit him.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who they are. I'd probably just be shocked.
Yeah. He was really shocked. It was I guess it was sexual assault, but he was fine with it after the fact. But
sure.
Yeah. Kind of regretting telling the story, but I'll stand by it. It got a laugh, you know. It's like almost like a Sacha Baron Cohen thing. It's like you gotta commit. You gotta commit to what you're doing. He does stuff that's incredible. Did you ever watch We Are America
I watched the first like 4 episodes.
Yeah, one of my favorite was when he did the Israeli dude.
Yeah,
like that was really funny. I think he was talking to
or something like his name was.
Yeah, he was talking to I think it was it Dick Cheney or something, or he was talking to some like
and he asked him to sign his water board.
Yeah. It was I love that. I love that. I respect it so much because like I would love to be able to do characters like that. I fantasize that I'll be able to, but I don't know how he does it without breaking. Like like when you get things like I guess you're doing stuff and you expect them to react a certain way. I don't know how we get, like, when people say something you would never expect, when they're even crazier than you're being.
Yep.
How do you just stay in it?
Yeah, I mean I've always loved Sacha Baron Cohen. I don't think I could ever do what he does though, just for the mere fact that I would be too self-conscious about being that much of an asshole to strangers.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, you're a nice guy. Like,
I can't. It's too much. Like, I'd be like, I can't do this. This is too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hate it if it happened to me. Mm-hmm. So doing it to someone else would just
like those prank shows or anything like that.
I mean, a prank is a little different because most of those pranks too, they come out at the end. It's like, you're on a prank show. Oh, we're having fun.
Right. Whereas
there's a release that I don't think you get with something like that, and I don't want to say it's mean, but there's definitely a lot more of a pointed attack to it.
Yeah,
and an individualized
it is a little bit more.
Push.
It is a little more mean. I find it hard to like watch a lot of the stuff like that because like you do have to like make a moral decision in your heart when you're watching it, like to say like, I'm going to separate what's happening from like what the way your world should work, right? And it's almost a suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that it's bad or what he's doing, and I'm not saying that sometimes some of the people don't necessarily deserve it.
Right.
I'm just saying the intentions behind it would be a lot different than something like a prank show where we're doing it to like scare people, but we're also doing it. We're having fun with it.
Yeah.
We're letting them in on the joke after. We're like, hey, you got goofed.
Yeah.
It's good. Don't worry about it. You know, not, oh, you killed a bunch of people because you sent people to a different country to fight in a war. Or you know, you have a really bad human rights, things like that, you know. Or
high five him, but it's really, like, there's a different layer that's a little bit harder to understand.
It's not calling people out for their prejudices either.
No.
Which is what Sacha does a lot of times.
Yes. Well, I guess he is calling them out, but like on a meta level, right? Like he by him, I guess, sympathizing with them, and then I guess making that character so absurd, so like the fact that he agrees with it is so abhorrent or so insane. It just highlights like the fact that they actually believe these things, right? Yeah. So it's doing what I guess. It doesn't have the wig to camera because it's doing things on a completely other level. Something that like I wouldn't even have the concept to come up with, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I respect it so much. Like I like as I start performing and do all these different things, the things that I really appreciate watching and seeing are things that were like, I don't even think I could do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I see like a stand-up comedian do a joke that like, oh, I could give me enough time, I could write that. Right? Like that doesn't really amaze me anymore. Where when I see things that it's like I don't think I could ever do that.
Yep.
That's what I really respect, right? Like when I saw like one that really resonated with me when I saw Neil Brennan's 3 Mics, his Netflix special.
Yeah.
That one was like really eye opening for me because it's called 3 Mics because he's standing on stage and he has 3 microphones, 3 mic stands, evenly spaced.
Yeah.
Stage left is traditional stand up. The middle one is emotional stuff, and then the right one is one-liners. So every time he shifts gears, he goes to a different mic. And so the emotional stuff is not funny at all.
Yeah.
It's literally just him talking about truth and like really like deep emotional things and him telling his truth, like talking about his life. And like he goes from that and then immediately switches to traditional stand-up and he's smiling 2 seconds later. And then he goes from that and he goes to do one-liners and then he just flips around through all of these things and like and it's seamless and like it was like you could do that and like it's completely eye-opening and it just really made me appreciate that like you know art could look like that.
Yeah. But
that's just it's amazing like when you see things that like you didn't even have conception of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just makes me respect the people that do it even more.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about the arts, right? Is you're when you can be surprised, and then when you can take those elements and try and incorporate them into what you do. I mean, most art is theft anyway, right?
Yeah, they call it inspiration.
You're stealing things from everything that you're exposed to. So
I think it. I can't remember who said it, but it's like it all goes in the bag. Mm-hmm. Right, like you have a bag of tricks, and every time you see something that inspires you, or like you see someone and like, oh, they're doing it that way, it's like I'm gonna take a little bit of that. I'm gonna put it in my bag, right? Like, and then it's like it's just sometimes you do it inadvertently. Like so, I remember I listened back to one set and I was just like, aha, I was doing Chris D'Elia. Oh yeah, like not even consciously, but it was just like I at one point I went like so good. Like I did that. I did like his inflection where he like when he does that concatenation of words, and it's just like But it's like then I listened to it. It's like I'm aware of it. It's like I'm not gonna do it that way again. But it's like maybe occasionally like you know I'll concatenate a couple words together.
That was an interesting thing at Humber because you started to notice that you would notice who people's influences were. Where you're just like, oh, they're doing their set just like this person.
Yeah.
And you would start seeing those weird patterns about, oh, that's who they like. You could point to each person.
Dane Cook, Louis C.K., Cedric the Entertainer. Like,
essentially. It was a really weird kind of experience seeing that.
I did this show. It was horrible, but it was reasonably fun. But it was in a guy's apartment, and you're performing to like 7 people. Mm-hmm. But it was also getting streamed live on Twitch.
Oh, okay.
So there was text to speech heckling that they could pay for.
Yeah.
Right. So like every so often, like there would be a cut in of a robot voice that would just fuck your timing and completely ruin like because it would just jump in. But it's delayed, right? Mm-hmm. So like they're watching it on a bit of a delay. The thing comes in at a bit of a delay. So they're heckling the joke you've already finished.
Yeah.
So then it just fucks everything up. But I was doing this show, and one of the other guys on the show that went up, it was like his second time ever doing stand-up, and he went up, and he was literally doing Louis C.K. like he was doing his own material, but his inflection, his voice, he was like... He was doing like every single like mannerism was like this guy's just doing Louis C.K. Like and once I saw it I couldn't unsee it and so it was really hard to like even appreciate anything that he was doing. It's just interesting. It's like and it's funny because it makes you so upset when you see that, right? Because you're just like do your own thing, right? But what makes me a little bit more like peeved is like that the audience enjoys it. Like if there's ever laugh, like you know when you see someone doing like hacky stuff or like you see someone do like terrible improv and it gets laughs, it's like makes you like resent the audience a little bit.
True.
Like, and it's just those. It's a very inside baseball because like when you're watching it before you start performing as an audience member, you're just like, oh, it's funny, it's funny. Like that's all it needs to be. It just needs to make me laugh. But then you start performing, you're just like, no, he has to make them laugh in the right way.
I see. My thing about that though is as frustrating as it can be seeing someone performing in that like someone else's style. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I think that's just part of the process of learning stand-up. Is that. Yeah. That's how you find your voice, is by emulating the voices of those people that you respect and that you like. Mm-hmm. And through that exploration, that's when you find your own voice. So I can't be mad at someone doing like this and like finding it. I mean, if this guy is like touring nationally and getting paid to do it and doing Louis Speak, then I'd be pissed at him. But I mean, if this guy's like just doing mics and he's still figuring himself out, sure.
Yeah, it's just it's like it's for me it's like it's like a personal sore point where it's like this is my moment of weakness. What I feel like when I'm not being empathetic towards the person I'm interacting with, right? Yeah. The only reason I think it upsets me is because I've done it, and then once you move past that, it's like you don't even want to think about the fact that you've done it, right? Like I remember doing a show. Do you know Angelica Scanura at all?
No, I don't.
She's very funny. She's like a headliner and she's got that. You might have seen her in ads because she has this new show on TV. Angelica's 22-minute workout. She's dressed like in a Jane Fonda like outfit and like it's like Pilates. It's like a throwback to the 80s type of thing. Yeah. But now that I see it, you'll see it on buses and stuff. But she was judging the show I was doing where it was like you go up and then you get like roasted by the two panelist judges, whatever. And I did my set and then I finished and she was like, so I could tell that you really like Anthony Jeselnik, because then like I went back and like afterwards I was like, ah, and then I went back and listened to my thing. I was like, oh, I'm doing Jeselnik. Like I was listening to the thing. It's like I was and then at one point I even went like, that was a good joke. Like I did like his thing, and it's like, oh, I feel terrible right now. But it's like you said, it's a learning experience. Like now that goes in the bag. Like when I first became aware of the fact that I say on stage a lot, that was my filler word when I first started. Like that's the word that I would throw in every 10 words was because I was nervous because I didn't want to have any dead air. Right, so there's no way I could, if I wasn't confident that the audience knew what I was talking about, I would say, and then I would get nods, right, and then that became like my safety net, and then you realize that like, if you're doing well, they should know. Yeah. So you don't need to check it.
Well, it's funny too, like what you consume, how it can just so quickly infect what you say.
Yeah.
And just change. I was listening to Harmontown for a while there. And I had to stop listening to it because it was affecting my speech patterns. I was starting to speak a lot like have you ever really listened to Harmontown?
No.
So he gets really drunk on it and he stutters a lot and he's a lot like he'll ramble. He'll be like, and then they did this and they were like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I found I was starting to pick that up in my like day to day, and I'm just like I can't do this anymore. It's really starting to fuck with my head.
Right.
And then you become so aware of it, but you keep doing it, and you can't really stop it. So I had to step away from it. But
yeah, I heard I listened to Pete Holmes' podcast sometimes, and he was doing he was doing one with Thomas Middleditch, and they were talking about how they used to be really good friends, and they had to stop hanging out. Because
they were influencing each other too much?
Yeah, because Pete was starting to take like bits of characters that he and Thomas would do together when they were improvising on stage, and it was getting folded into his stand-up. Yeah. And then it was kind of like, and then the reason that it came to a head is because Thomas was doing like a show, and then someone came up to him afterwards like, oh, so I think you stole that from Pete Holmes.
Yeah.
And that like caused a huge rift in their relationship because it's like, no, we did that together. If anything, I started it. And then it's like, and then they had to stop hanging out for years. And then they finally got a chance to meet each other once they had developed their own voices and got their shit together, I guess. But like it's so funny. It's like even if you enjoy someone, it's like a lot of the times you have to sacrifice that relationship in order to do things better or something.
It's interesting because I find working with my co-host Cody a lot. We do definitely have a lot of overlap in things that we've picked up from each other. I think we've done pretty okay at keeping a bit of ourselves and leaning into ourselves a bit more, so we're not totally just overlapping each other.
Well, I mean, it seems like your show has success, so there's got to be some function of like you play off of each other well.
Yeah.
Right?
I think we're a good foil for each other. So
that's the word I was looking for. You just used your perfect vocabulary.
Hey man, I'm an educated man.
Well, let's switch gears back to a little bit more of a serious thing. The question will start super morbid, but it'll end on a good note, and we'll go on a ride in this one sentence. So if you were to die tomorrow, what can you say you've done in your life that has left the world a better place? Doesn't have to be a great answer. It can be small things. I had Allie Banks on, and I don't know if you met her, but her answer was that she has a really good relationship with her sister, and that throughout their lives, like she has really been there for her sister and supported her and made her life better. So she's been that influence on that.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that you can really do is, the personal relationships you have and how you foster those. I know I can be a real pain in the ass, and again, for the joke too.
Yeah.
You always.
Well, this has been a fucking trial.
You know what I mean, though. Yeah. It's like it's moments where you push the joke too far and you just end up being an asshole, or a moment where you shouldn't be joking, and then it's always there. So there's that distance. I don't know. I say the best thing that I could do is those moments when I'm not doing that.
Right.
Which is a weird answer. I know it's not a specific.
No,
one,
I understand it. I understand it. There's I have this. I postulated this theory before, but I'll say it again. It's like my theory about making the world a better place. Everything would go great if everyone just focused on their immediate sphere of influence and focused on making every interaction they had within that optimal. So if everyone's like a bubble, and then all of life is just Venn diagrams overlapping and stuff, if you make sure that every time your bubble intersects with someone else's, that overlap is positive. And if everyone does that, and does that throughout their entire life, the world will be perfect. Because if we all just focused on that and made sure that every interaction we had in an individual basis was a positive one, just by nature of like transitive property, everything would be incredible. Yeah. So I like to think I'm a nice person. I like to think that I'm putting that positive thing into the world. I definitely have failings at times, but I call it a fault of character for me, but like I don't focus on like global issues because I don't think that I have any way to influence them in my personal life. Like I'm conscious of the environment, etc. All these different things, and I like to think that think about the thing, overarching things.
I'd like to change my answer. I sometimes recycle. So
yes, but like I think if we all focused like. If you focus on on the biggest issues in the world, you can easily become overwhelmed, right? It's why I had to stop watching the news all the time, because like it just makes you feel inadequate or like ineffectual if you just see like everything's burning all of the time. That's all the news is, right? Everything's on fire, in metaphorical or literal ways. Everything's on fire because that's the thing that they report. Like they don't report the good things, right? And so that just kind of started to put me in a negative headspace, like because I was watching the news all of the time because I thought like this is the way I'll build material. I'll talk about current events, and then I realized that's not my funny. Yeah. That's not my funny. My funny is like looking at everyday things and then just giggling about it and making it silly. Like the other day I was just thinking, it's like when guys, this is the bit that I'm thinking about, like, and this is my funny. This is what's funny for me. It's like when guys like start growing out their hair. They start growing out because it started to get a little bit longer and they got one compliment on it, and then they thought that the compliments would increase exponentially as the hair got longer, right? No. And then it gets to a certain point that that it gets so long that it becomes inconvenient, and then they make it short again. They don't cut it because they still think that they're going to get more compliments. They just start putting it in buns. because it looks like it's short again, but it makes them feel better about it. But they're like, I'll still get the because if you see guys who have like Tarzan long hair, they never wear it down.
Yeah, it's almost like a compliment bell curve.
Yes, it goes up and then it comes right back down. But they always believe that it'll come back up. Like they're just gambling.
Some people it does, but it's a real crapshoot.
Yeah. I need to get a haircut because my mom said this the other day and it really hurt my feelings. I've been growing it out, and it's good. It's got a good length. It's getting that weight where it holds itself down. Yeah. But I need to get it shaped because I kind of started looking at like Lord Farquaad. It's my mom's words.
Oh, okay.
Where because it comes down and it just like hits a point.
I used to have the long hair. Mine was just I looked like Black Sabbath in the 70s. It was just this big.
Oh yeah.
Awful.
You go through phases.
Yeah,
right?
My mom loved my long hair. She never gave me a hard time about it. So.
My mom likes my long hair. It's just she's like, you need to get it shaped. It needs to have more of a triangular shape. I was like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, my dad, and my grandpa, or my grandmother didn't care for it. Though,
yeah.
So
I like when you get those subtle jabs.
Yeah. Maybe you should cut your hair.
Yeah, it's like a very short knife. It doesn't hit any vital organs, but it's just like right in the ribs.
Yeah, like listen, cut your hair. We're cutting you out of the will.
Yeah.
Like, things like that.
Just subtle. Yeah. All right. So the last question. This has been. I really enjoyed talking to you. But the last question that I always come to is I ask people about their best day. We come full circle. We start with our worst day, and we come back with best day. What I mean by best day is, you have your favorite movie. You love rewatching it, and every time you rewatch it, you catch different details, right?
Yeah.
What I mean by best day is like, tell me about a day that if you could wake up tomorrow and relive it, you can't change anything, you can't do anything differently, but you just get to experience it all over again. Just tell me about what that day is and why it's your best one. To give you a moment, I'll tell you about mine. Mine was my 19th birthday party. It was really special because my birthday is December 9th. At the time I was in university, and on December 9th I had to write an organic chemistry exam. So I couldn't celebrate my birthday. So we had to do it on December 27th after Christmas, and it functioned as a holiday get-together as well. So all of the extended family that you normally don't get to see around the holidays and friends and stuff, they all came. So it ended up being like over 40 people, 45 people in the house, and it was at that moment when I was like, when they were singing Happy Birthday and I'm looking at the cake in front of me, I looked around and almost 99% of the people that I really cared about in my life at that moment were in the room.
Yeah.
And I got to look around, and it's not like it was a great day all the way through. Like, I got yelled at for most of the day about cleaning and getting everything together because it was stressful having that many people over. Happens every time, but at the end of the day, it was incredible. Like, I had my girlfriend at the time, I had my best friends, I had all of my family that I really loved and cared for were in that room, with the exception of a couple people that weren't able to make it.
Yep.
And it just felt like in that moment everything made sense because I wasn't worried about the future. I wasn't having regrets about the past. I was just enjoying the moment.
Yeah.
And so that was my best day.
Yeah, that's fair. 14th birthday, got my Sony Discman and the Baha Men CD. No, that's not.
I was ready to try and spin it. That's great because
that's a weirdly true story. No, I wasn't 14. I think I was 11.
Oh,
it was a little before
Sony Discman.
Yeah.
Did you have like the one that had the clip, like where it clipped to your belt? I had one of those.
It would have skipped, wouldn't it?
It had the shock absorber in there, so you put it on the waist and it was like.
Best day, like
it didn't clip. Sorry, it had a carrying case.
Okay.
That would open, and then you'd slide it into this neoprene case,
like those cell phone holders.
Yeah, 100%. But it didn't loop in to your belt. It was a separate thing. It was like a fanny pack with Velcro, so you'd come across and like, and it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. I gave it another life later because I used it as a Nerf bullet holder.
Oh, that's nice.
Just put all the bullets.
Keep your ammo.
Yeah. Stay strapped.
It's a tricky question. I mean, you think about like shows and things you did because there's always those highs, but there's also like the anxiety and everything leading up to it, which makes it a lot more.
Right.
I think some of the best days that I can remember are kind of an amalgamation of the same day over years. Like from my childhood, some of the best was like Christmas and New Year's Day at my grandparents' house because that was when the whole side of the family was like fairly close too, so it was always like.
Are you the family that hosts, or like what's the holidays look around your house? Just for context,
a lot more stripped down, a lot more minimalist than it used to be.
Yeah.
Things happen, and people drift apart, and
Oh, okay.
family shit.
Family
goes
rifts.
down.
They always
so
happen.
it's back to when it was all like everyone was there and everyone was happy and all the kids were there, because all my cousins are like within a couple years of me, and my sisters too. So I think like those New Years were always like a highlight for me when I was a kid.
Right.
And we had those kind of like nights all the time, but I think in contrast to maybe how it is like in later years, it's something that stands out.
Right.
As
like remembering, like it's almost the golden years of that type of experience, right?
And I am also always a little wary of nostalgia because you always look at things through those kind of rose-colored glasses. You don't always see the dark spots too. So,
right.
I don't know. There's definitely much better days that I've had and happier days. This is just what I'm.
No, the reason I don't ask this question ahead of time is because like people, if you sit with it, like you come up with the good story. It's like, oh, this is the thing that like if I got to Instagram this story, this is the curated version of what I want people to think about my life. But invariably, I think there's only been one exception, is that the people's best days are always like. It's always about that. It's always about family connection, people being with the people that they care about, and it's doing simple things, right? Like one guy, it was like it was his birthday party, and they had pizza at his house, and they went to play laser tag, and that was his best day because it was with all his buddies, and like it sounded about simpler times, right? It's another person who was like going to a concert with his like it was a 24-hour thing. They went to a concert and then went to the same concert again with his girlfriend the next day, and it was like he got to do all of these things with people that he cared about. And the I guess the lesson that I'm learning and by asking this question, which why I like asking it, is it seems like we chase all of these other things, right? We chase wealth, we chase power, we chase like the accomplishments, the goals that we set for ourselves. But at the end of the day, the things that when you look back, it's like, what did I really enjoy? What do I think about in the shower when I'm like, oh, that's the best time of my life? It's like, it was doing simple shit. It was eating chicken wings with your buddies watching the Leafs game, right? It was it was like these like little things, right? And then, but the weird part is that when you're doing these little things, you're thinking about something else a lot of the time, right? Like when you're sitting with your buddies, like you're gonna look at your phone. It's like, oh, what am I gonna do later? And so I'm actively trying to work on that, like
trying to live more in the moment.
More in the moment, and not just live in the moment, like truly experience and enjoy the moment, right? Like you can live in the moment but also have like something in the back of your head that's bothering you, right? Like, but I'm trying to like, which is hard. It's like because I'm by nature a planner. I'm by nature like I like to think ahead, and because like you could probably relate to this with the comedian's brain, you are thinking 8 steps ahead because that's your strength, right? That's the thing that makes you good at the thing that you excel at. But it's also your crutch, and it's your kryptonite because it's what's preventing you from actually enjoying the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And so that's the fight that I'm constantly going through.
Yeah, finding that balance. Yeah.
And what's does that like makes like I guess resonate with you, that like do you have that experience where you can't, you're always thinking ahead, or is that something that you've
yes and no.
Struggle with?
I've gotten pretty good the last few years of just kind of letting things. I don't plan a lot of times just because it's just like the way my life works now. It's just kind of like it'll happen if it happens. So
was there a certain experience that kind of crystallized that for you?
I think there was a few years where everything was very planned out, and it was like we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this, and I just kind of got to a point where I'm like it doesn't matter. All it's doing is stressing me out, so I just kind of let it go. I might have gone too far in the one direction, and now I need to find a happy medium between the two.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a yo-yo. You vacillate between things, and you need to. That's all it is. It's a learning experience, right? I was so far on the planning side that I needed to like pull it back because like that was my strength. That I went to university, like how I did my co-ops. I was planning to get like I thought that when I graduated I would have this job, and then it didn't go my way, and then like now I'm still reeling a little bit because if you asked me 4 years ago, I thought like everything would have been figured out by now. But that's not the way life works, right? Like I'm in the middle of the uncertainty of like I don't know what my life looks like 2 months from now. I don't know what it looks like 2 weeks from now, right? Yeah. And so that uncertainty, I lied. I'll be celebrating Christmas in a month, but I know what it looks like in a month. But it's an active like thing for me to be like sort of forgive myself for not having everything figured out, because for a lot of my life I was the I guess the good kid in my family, whereas like they didn't have to worry about me, like I had stuff figured out, and then now it's like my sister has stuff figured out and I don't. And it's fun when you get to flip the script on its head. I made a bit out of it, but it's like, hey, if you're the good kid in your family, like you always do well. If you want to feel true freedom, just tank your career. Just tank it. Yep. It's great. It's so free. Like you no expectations anymore. People don't think that you're gonna do anything. It's like, it's so free.
People stop calling.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, your friends stop liking you.
Get out of those marriages that you don't want to be in.
Oh, and your kids, you only have to see them on weekends. Yeah. It's great. Oh man, but this has been really enjoyable. I appreciate you coming to do this. I mean, it's what I really enjoy about this, and you probably share this about podcasting. It's like how often you get to sit down with people in a long period of time without interruptions.
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
Rare. I really enjoy it. So, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks
and
for having me.
I appreciate it.
Great.
See you tomorrow.
We'll see you then.